Hello everyone.
Well, George and I are here to talk about music again. I just played George a really rough version of the New Church album. Like an unmixed, unfinished version. And George is my friend, so he's going to say good things. But here, what did you think? Just overall impression of that?
Very ordinary.
You're no longer my friend. You can find your own way out of my mansion.
I just heard, what did I hear? 11 songs?
Yeah.
I heard 11 completely different songs. Had all different directions, and yet, like since 1980, there's a common church sound with all of them. And I don't know what it is, I don't know what that sound is, but I know that it pervades underlyingly or overwhelmingly in each song, yet every song was different. There was one song that didn't have drums at all. There was one song that used this semitone major to major chord lift, that there was none of that in any other song.
You noticed the semichord major lifts?
Yes, I did. And it was beautiful, and
all right. Well,
yeah,
thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely love it.
Thank you, George. Next week, Gareth Koch and I are going in to make an album of ancient music. So Gareth, I did this album with this guitarist, Gareth. You know Gareth.
I know Gareth. He and I studied at the conservatory together. He was a guitar performance major.
He's a proper sort of guitarist.
Oh, yeah.
So he does all this stuff, and I was saying it's very medieval. And I said, why don't we go further back? Why don't we go further back to the ancient world?
BC.
The Assyrians, the Phoenicians, the Carthaginians, the Greeks, the Armenians, the Greeks, the Bithyans, all of these people, the Samaritans.
Did the Bithyans like Biff? Who were the Bithyans?
Bithyans.
Oh, Bithyans.
Bithyans.
Sorry, Bithyans.
No, not Bithyans. Nor the ruffians. Let's try and do something like that. And so on that album we just released, there's a proto version of that called Lady Ishtar in Her Garden.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to... Nobody really knows what that music was like. Am I correct?
There's no recorded...
How would we have any way of knowing?
There's no recorded version of it, and it's not written down.
It's not written down. So how... We could only possibly be guessing at what it is, right?
So when you wrote the lyrics, what were you thinking of?
Well, I was thinking it's a prayer, because I'm thinking it's a prayer from a man to his patron goddess, Lady Ishtar.
Uh-huh.
Sort of, he's describing. He's written a little song for her,
nice,
praising her and singing about his life, and. So when I write the lyrics next week, it's all got to be something that a guy in those days could have sung.
Right.
But we have some of the lyrics are written down, but the music itself, we can only guess at. And I sort of guess at it. I was very influenced by Hollywood biblical films. Sometimes I felt like they were sort of hitting on it. Or maybe that's just because I was a kid going, wow, that's what the music in the court of the Pharaoh sounded like. This sort of twinkle, twinkle, twinkle on the harp. And when something big happens, it's sort of... But weird, strange, these sort of intervals that they would portray their music at were sort of slightly different to ours. They'd sort of get something weird and... I don't know, sort of Eastern sounding to it. Anyway, influenced by that idea and then by some of the things Mark Bolan touched on, I've always wanted to make an album of ancient music.
I'm just reading this thing. Would it sound like Always Look on the Brighter Side of Life from Life of Brian? Maybe not. No. Eric Idle didn't figure into your...
I'm not interested in reading what people in there are writing.
Oh,
I'm
right,
just
okay.
having a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't...
Yeah.
If I'm having a serious conversation, I don't... People...
Yes.
It's irrelevant
Yeah.
whether what they're writing, I'm not looking at it or answering it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're wasting your time. So
I-
there you go.
I think it's interesting that you trying to tap into... I mean, who else has come up with this idea of
Okay, well,
coming up with...
there is a slight precedent. Graham Revell.
Not Maurice.
No.
As in...
No, Revell. Revel, not Revel,
Right.
Revell,
Okay.
who now does lots of, and is an Australian guy,
Yeah.
who does lots of soundtracks these days, and pretty good too. He was once in a band called SPK, and SPK was this sort of funky singing, sort of had a sort of a black or an Asian girl as a singer. There's really sort of sharp lyrics and this really industrial beat.
Yeah.
And then right at the end of SPK, I guess as he was transitioning into soundtracks, he made a fascinating album called Song of the Byzantine Flowers.
Right.
And it's all kind of samples and stuff
Beautiful.
of sort of modern day, but it's all got kind of, it's all put together to kind of make this sort of feeling of that you're listening to music from a couple of thousand years ago that sort of doesn't have much to do with, like lots of voices going oh, like in samples, like in sort of blocks, and then other ones going oh, and then a disjointed sort of trumpet going and sort of like all chucked together in this sort of sad and disturbing way. I cannot recommend that album enough. Songs of the Byzantine Flowers by SPK. Has anyone out there heard of that? Not that I'm reading your lip.
I must admit I haven't heard it.
You haven't heard of that?
No.
Have you heard of SPK?
No.
You haven't heard of Graham Revell either?
No, I've heard only his cousin Maurice. Ravel.
That's Ravel.
What about, I know it's completely different, but do you like the Polyphonic Spree? Do you remember?
I don't know much about them,
Yeah.
I must admit.
Are
Are they doing ancient music, are they?
Well, they weren't doing ancient music, but they come to mind when you talk about music that kind of comes from another era, from a bygone past. If that's not a tautology, a bygone past. But I love what
The bygone past,
as opposed to the future past. The little that I've heard of Polyphonic Spree, I really like. I love their big choral stuff. Oh, by the way, going back to your album, I loved the vocal arrangements.
Oh yeah.
And you've done it, since 1980. But I love your voice in octaves. You sing. You've got the rich chocolate baritone here, and then you've got the falsetto an octave above that. And that's definitely a church sound.
Bit of a formula, that one.
But it's a good one.
Okay, thank you. So, what else is new in music this week, George?
Well, I'm hoping that music concerts continue. It's a bit of a scary time, isn't it?
This is. Oh wait, there. I forgot to say this is a corona-free.
Oh, sorry, I should.
This is corona-free. We're not talking about. We're not talking about that.
Let's not do that.
What do you think of? I've got a question for you. Did you ever hear "Let It Be" naked?
Do you mean Long and Winding Road naked?
No, the whole album was re-released naked. Did you hear Long and Winding Road naked?
I've heard Long and Winding Road
and
naked.
What was your opinion of that?
I love it. I think it's fantastic, but I also love the Phil Spector arrangement.
Okay.
I love Phil Spector's arrangement. I know he's a naughty boy and he's in jail, right?
But he is in jail.
He's in jail, and he did bad. he did bad things, but I love his arranging. The violin line, the ascending violin string line that he wrote in Long and Winding Road. I know Paul McCartney said he didn't like it. He might not have actually liked it, or he might have, I don't know. But I love it. But it's a good enough song that without it, as in the naked version, it's still a great song.
Yeah.
And I like what Paul McCartney did with it in the naked version. I'm very conflicted because I have no more respect for anyone than the songwriter themselves. The guy who, especially if he's not just a songwriter, but he goes, I've written a song, it's me on a piano, me singing, that's what it is, it's intimate, it's this. Yes.
And then to his shock and horror, a record comes out with and sort of all of that, and he feels violated so much that he can't get past the fact that it is actually, for the rest of us who just took it for what it was, it's a lovely arrangement that it's just such a melancholy, sad, wonderful, triumphant, everything song has so many mixed emotions, and I like what Phil Spector did, but I'm conflicted because Paul says he doesn't like it. So now I don't know what to fucking do. I certainly like it better than the naked version. What can you do? I've listened to it for 100 years.
I think it does tarnish it somewhat. It doesn't make the arrangement worse, but it does tarnish it. But when I first heard it as a little child, that's the version that I thought, they did, and they were happy with, that Paul McCartney was happy with. So I didn't know any different, and I love it. And I've done it live with an orchestra on stage, and when that bit comes up, I mean, that string line just consumes me. I love it. The fact that Paul McCartney didn't like it for whatever reason, and he had good reason, doesn't take away from it.
Do you remember when we did Sydney Rococo and I said to you for Wrong One Again and Trader Signals that I want that Phil Spector sound that he got on Long and Winding Road?
Yes.
The chorus and the strings?
Yes.
Yeah, so what do I know? Not my song, maybe not his intention to have it like that, so...
I think there was more to it than that.
Oh yeah, there was always there's always more than that.
When I was orchestrating for Sydney Rococo, you and I were getting on, and still are, of course. But Paul McCartney and his fellow band members were not, and Phil Spector was not his choice. I don't think he didn't know about it, did he? Or you didn't?
No, it was done. Yeah. It was done and given to him as a fait accompli.
Right. So, therefore, there's emotion attached to it.
Yeah.
There were dynamics.
So it's almost like it doesn't matter how fucking good it was.
Yeah. I reckon. I don't know this for sure, and I'm probably guessing, and if he heard me saying this, he'll probably say, what does Ellis know? But I have a feeling that Paul McCartney likes it. He would never admit it, but I reckon he likes it.
Maybe.
Sorry, Paul, I know you're not listening, but I'm sure you're probably going, I want to punch your lights out right now. But that's what I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, look, Paul McCartney's just joined us and says, "Fuck
I want
you,
to punch your lights out.
Fuck you, George.
See you.
Fuck you, George. I didn't want those fucking strings and choruses there.
Hey, I came to see you twice, and it was two of my favourite concerts I've ever seen.
Right.
When you came out 2 Novembers ago or something. So, Steve.
Yes.
You've got projects happening. You've got Gareth Koch. You've got
get in the picture, George.
You've got church albums coming.
Yeah.
Church album coming out.
That's correct.
What's exciting you in other people's music at the moment? Have you heard anything that new that you like?
Oh, have I?
While you're thinking, I've heard of a couple of new songs I like. One by a band called the DMAs.
Oh yeah.
A song called Silver.
Yeah.
I really like that song. Look it up if you please, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't heard it, I like it. I've heard other DMA stuff. I don't like it as much as Silver. I think Silver's a great song though. I can't think what else. Anything you bought lately or heard lately that you like?
What about I Know Leopard?
I love I Know Leopard.
Yeah.
Their album Landmine is one of my favourite albums, and Jen McCulloch, who plays violin and keyboards and sings with Arno Leopard is a violinist in the orchestras that I work with. She unfortunately she couldn't play in the Sydney Rococo concert, but she plays in a few other things that I did, including the ABBA stuff and all that. So she's great. But I like Arno Leopard well, and their lead singer and keyboardist and songwriter Lachlan is fantastic. Really.
I know Leopard.
Luke, I should say. Luke Lachlan.
I know Leopard. Remember.
Very good.
Where you heard this first. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for tonight. This is George Ellis over here in Kilbey Manors, and me wishing you all a good night.
Bye-bye.